It's 4:20 somewhere, and right now that somewhere is right here. So hello and welcome to the Cannabis Show. My name is producer Vince, and this guy's name, he's your host, Ricardo Baca.
Vince, thank you for that, and to everyone joining us today, welcome to the Cannabist Show, where we talk about all things weed.
That's all things.
And that is the serious marijuana news and the not always serious stories as well. In fact, if you pop onto the site right now, thecannabist.co, you'll see stories about a possible mass shutdown of medical pot dispensaries in Montana.
Doesn't that happen in every state when they start?
You'll see a story about Denver Group's new proposal for legal cannabis clubs.
This story again?
I know. And about the unusual challenges Hawaii's medical cannabis industry now faces.
Oh, Ricardo, you mean like inter-island transport bans?
Actually, Vince, yes, that's exactly what I meant. Everybody, of course, producer Vince is in the house with me today. Dude, how are you?
You know, every day, like this day, I'm living the dream, dude. I love being here in Colorado. The weather's starting to do the you're going to get 1.5 feet of snow dumped on you any day now. Beautiful weather that I'm starting to get used to, man. How have you been?
Welcome to Colorado. That's what you get here. I'm well. I'm great. You know, we broke a lot of news on the site this week. Thrilled about that. Delving into another investigative piece. Very excited about that. We'll have more about that next week. But Vince, I do think it's time. Are you ready for this? It's the Week in Weed.
I am so ready. You teased next week's Week in Weed, though, so I'm ready for that one, too, now. So let's combine them both. Where are we starting?
Oh, man. This Week in Weed starts in Wyoming.
Dude, last week was Utah, and now we're in Wyoming. You really get around to our neighbors at the very least.
You know, we try to get around to wherever there's cannabis news happening, you know? And wow, is it happening in Wyoming, of all places. So, of course, Wyoming shares a border with Colorado, and of course, marijuana is illegal there.
Of course.
Police, legislators, judges are not happy about the legal pot party going on at their neighbor's house in Colorado, especially when the party favors sometimes find their way into Wyoming.
Yeah, dude, I remember when we ran that first story about the Wyoming legislators who wanted to make edibles possession a felony. Is that what we're still talking about, Ricardo?
Oh, man, it is. And this is an update on that story. So, previously, lawmakers in Wyoming proposed that the possession of more than 3 ounces of pot-infused edibles or drinks would be a felony charge. A proposal that was obviously intensely strict.
And that's not 3 ounces of activated THC, that's just 3 ounces. So if that bill had passed, it would have meant that anyone who had 2 weed candy bars or 1 12-ounce THC soda would face felony charges?
Exactly, dude. Yeah, it was very controversial. And while they actually stripped the felony language from the bill, the lawmakers were not able to clarify what the penalties would be for these pot brownie infractions because they missed a legislative action deadline this week.
Wait, dude. Isn't the joke about remembering to hit your deadline usually one everyone makes about the pro-legalization side? But in English, what does all this mean?
It means that district judges throughout Wyoming will now have to come up with their own interpretations of the law when deciding on cases involving marijuana edibles. And that's not ideal because one judge can say something and another judge can say something else. For example, last year, a judge dismissed charges against a man who had 2 pounds of marijuana cookies and chocolates because the state law only allows possession of cannabis in its plant form only.
Ah, so overall what they were trying to do is just clarify their existing law, but they missed the deadline.
Exactly, yes, yes. Now, interesting things happening in Wyoming, but let's go a little bit south, because elsewhere in the Week in Weed, we have a very, very different story. In fact, this story shows how different neighboring states can be on this still divisive issue of marijuana legalization.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. And if I'm right, I know this story gives a whole new meaning to the phrase, feeling the burn.
Feeling the burn. Yes, the story is about Democratic presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders, or at least it's about one of his volunteers. Now, when Denver medical marijuana activist Greg Duran was out canvassing his neighborhood for Bernie Sanders earlier this week, you know, he's just starting in his neighborhood. He's going door to door. He's telling people to get out and caucus on Super Tuesday for Bernie. And as he was approaching one of his neighbor's houses, it was a house he's walked and driven by hundreds of times. He knew the house. He had never met his neighbor, but as he approached the door, he recognized that it smelled like patchouli.
Ah, it's a smell that every person who intakes wishes that they can have wafting out if they're not actually smelling cannabis flower at the very least. It's usually a good sign that a good time's on the other side of that door. What happened with Greg next?
Well, in this case, it turned out that his neighbor grows her own cannabis plants and makes her own pot-infused topicals and creams. They had a good back and forth. He talked about why he's voting for Bernie and why he was out canvassing for Bernie, and she talked about how she was primarily in Hillary's camp, but she was up for the conversation. It turned around to Greg's other work. He works with the Cannabis Patients Alliance, which we've had his wife and the CPA's founder, Terry Robnett, on the show before. And eventually, this woman who Greg had just mentioned said, "Hey, let me give you an ounce."
Hey, let me give you an ounce. It's the most beautiful, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words in the English language, and it's finally happening. Somebody knocks on your door, sometimes you offer them lemonade, sometimes you slam it back in their face, and here we are having a political conversation that ends in, hey, let me give you an ounce.
But this is an ounce, Vince. An ounce. That's, I mean, most people buy weed by the eighth. That's a lot of marijuana. And sure enough, she just walked over to the jar, poured it into a Ziploc bag. Wow, an ounce. And it's worth noting here that Sanders has proposed a system that involves completely descheduling cannabis. Right now, it's Schedule 1 as alongside the most dangerous substances in this country. He wants to deschedule it. He doesn't think it belongs on that schedule of drugs. And his opponent, Hillary Clinton, has said that she wants to see cannabis rescheduled from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2.
Okay, so if Clinton gets her ways, if she's elected, Schedule 2. So it's less dangerous now than heroin, but up there with the same medicinal value as cocaine at Schedule 2 federally. The cool part about this is that our presidential nominees are currently having conversations about cannabis. It's a national conversation at this point. Years ago, 12 years ago, if you brought up pot to a presidential candidate, you would just be a stoner trying to get attention. Now it's a real issue that is divisive for these candidates, dude.
Well, you know, it's fascinating. Plus, we have had 8 years of the Obama administration, and during that time, rescheduling marijuana has not really fully been on the table. It's been this hot potato that's been passed back and forth, and now, of course, there was news, if you've been paying attention, Eric Holder, our former Attorney General, came out recently saying that he actually supports marijuana being rescheduled. So, Vince, it's time to bring on our first guest.
Woo!
Okay, I hope you're ready for this. He is making his first appearance on the Cannabist Show, and he makes his livelihood in hemp. He's one of the few in the U.S. to be producing USDA organic certified hemp even, and it's my pleasure to welcome Tim Gordon to the Cannabist Show. Hey, man.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. Thanks
I like
for
your
having me.
hat.
Thanks.
Got to represent the brand, right?
Yeah, gotta have it. People recognize me because of my hat, too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I always have it on.
Thanks for making the trip down. You work out of where?
I work out of Boulder, Colorado, where we have our R&D facility up in that neck of the woods.
Ah, cool. We ask everybody who comes on the show this question first, so have fun with it. Are you a sativa guy or an indica guy?
I'm a sativa guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm busy from sun up to sundown, and I don't need the punch in the face couch lock at this point in my life. So
I know.
sativa guy.
I don't have a hard time sleeping either, so I'm right there with you. Tim, the company you work for, CBDRx, grows and produces hemp in Colorado. I've had some guests on this show and talking off the record outside of the studio tell me that hemp will eventually become a more lucrative crop than its THC producing cousin cannabis. So, agree or disagree?
You know, I agree. You know, the as an industry, the hemp industry, you know, has the innate ability to produce large-scale volume. We're talking agriculture here. So when you think about the restrictions that are under Colorado medical marijuana laws as far as growing and the availability to go to agriculture with tens of thousand acres of plants of the cannabis sativa realm, you can kind of see where in the national landscape, if you think of the cannabis whole phylum as a pie, marijuana would probably play a slight piece, where the hemp industry and the ability to farm for cannabinoids, textiles, grains, any kind of nutritional product will likely oversee the marijuana industry by quite a bit.
And do you have any idea, I mean, do you have a guess on when that might happen? When might hemp start making more money than its THC producing cousin?
Sure. In my estimation, just looking at the national landscape, hemp, throwing numbers around, hemp is estimated to be nearly a $40 billion industry next year, and that's just in a small amount of states. Now, I know we were close to that here in Colorado on the marijuana side, but if you think about the folks who are coming on large states like Kentucky, Tennessee, Iowa, big farm states.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
You can see how the clock's going to go the other way to the hemp side as far as.
Oh, yeah. And even in Colorado, we didn't quite make $1 billion in 2015. So if you're talking $40 billion in 2017 for hemp, that's substantial.
Substantial.
Some exciting news up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
CBDRx actually attained something that a lot of people didn't think was necessarily possible.
Sure.
You guys achieved both of your farms full USDA organic certification. Some of the few in the country. But tell us about that process of getting these fields certified organic. I know I've talked with you and some of your colleagues before, and it's pretty a tremendous story.
Yeah. We think of the realm of healing that encompasses this plant, and it all starts in the beginning in your agricultural practices and what you put into the plant. So once we started, it was a pretty clear choice to us where we wanted to go. So CBDRx is always, in my opinion, we are always seeking the best that we can for the end product, for the end user. So when someone wants to farm and have a good sustainable product and good agronomic practices, and then produce something that has a high nutritional value for the end user. We wanted to, test the limits and go to the USDA and seek certification for our hemp. And through a lot of team effort and a lot of tedious work, we were able to get there. And it was quite a long process.
And so this is certifying both fields, right? Because you have a field up in Boulder, Longmont, and another one down south? Yeah,
we have our R&D farmers in the Boulder, Longmont area and our big farms down in Pueblo County. And it was quite an eventful process. We had a lady named Natalie, who's our quality assurance officer. She kind of headed that up and really spearheaded that for us, having come from the organic industry herself, and really led the way for us at that point. And the whole process, encompassed several months of hard work, both on the paperwork side and testing, and it really turned out to our benefit. We were, more than happily surprised when the USDA sent us the letter of certification. It was an amazing shock, and it was a triumph for the company. I haven't cried over cannabis in years, but I got teary-eyed just because it was such an accomplishment for us.
Well, and the reason it was such an accomplishment, I mean, many of our viewers know that my colleague and I have done a lot of reporting on pesticides, and one of those little side trips took us to this idea of organic cannabis, and does that exist? And then we got word that the Colorado Attorney General's office was looking into weed companies using the word organic on their signs and their marketing materials, because that doesn't exist. Organic marijuana doesn't exist. So when you guys came along and got this certification along with a handful of other companies in the U.S., that's why it was surprising to you, to us, and there's been some great reporting done on this issue by our colleagues up in KUNC. Props to them. But then something else happened. I know after I initially talked with you guys, my first call was to the USDA. Had a very long and frustrating conversation with them over the course of a couple weeks, when they finally called me back and they had a letter that they were sending to their third-party certifying agencies saying that hemp crops can no longer be certified as organic. You guys got in under this deadline that I think the USDA didn't really know what was going on, but can you tell us about that process? What did you end up hearing back from the USDA after they kind of came back and said, okay, I know you've already done a couple. You've already certified a couple of these farms as organic hemp. Don't do any more. What did you guys hear from USDA at that time?
Yeah, so we were contacted by our certifier and given that same letter that you're mentioning. We see it as a temporary setback for the organic certification of hemp. I don't think that they're ever going to stop. I think the moratorium is justified until they can really put a process in place for certification of this product, of this particular commodity.
Sure.
And I understand why they put the temporary delay on. We are, as a company, moving forward with the USDA and organic certification. So we are, continually updating them weekly with our, farming strategies and everything like that. So we're moving forward with them at this point, and our recertification comes up, I believe, the end of next month. So.
And so your certification is not in danger. Do I understand that correct?
Yeah, we haven't been told they're revoking us or anything like that. So
and that's what they told me in my reporting as well.
Right, that we're going to get to carry on and proceed farming organically. So
what do you think happened there, though? That's my question. Do you think that these third-party certification agencies like OneCert, do you think that they did this under the understanding of this farm bill that had passed and saying, oh, we can do this now, and maybe they didn't check with the USDA? Do you have any idea how this happened?
I really don't. I really don't know. From what I understand, our third-party certifier was incredibly detailed in their process of our product.
As they would have to be.
As they would have to be. So, with the with this current scheduling of hemp under still being classified under Schedule 1,
sure,
and still having a federally illegal product, but having a federal entity saying you're organic. So I don't know if they're going to let the general landscape play itself out until maybe declassification of hemp occurs. We'll see. It's our goal to keep in touch with the USDA and assist them if they need anything in the process as far as certification. So.
But Tim, of course, hemp is as dangerous as heroin, right? So it should be Schedule 1 right alongside there, right? I mean, these are the most dangerous drugs in the land. Tim, thanks for coming on, dude.
No problem.
We're going to catch up some more here very shortly.
Absolutely.
Before we introduce our next guest, I am going to throw to our very own instructor of indica. That's Professor Pat for this week's entry in the new Cannabist Lexicon.
Fire, a generic term for really, really great looking marijuana. So great, all you want to do is light it on fire and enjoy the smoke. For example, my favorite dispensary has long lines, but that's because they only stock fire.
All right, Pat. Professor Pat, everyone. Thank you for that, Pat. On to our next guest, who is one of Colorado's newest producers of cannabis-infused edibles and capsules. In fact, I'm psyched to welcome my friend Brent Beckman to the Cannabist Show.
Thank you, Rico. Oh, it's going great. Thank you so much for having us here. Good to see you as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Brought the whole crew. You and I met through researcher Sue Sisley a couple months ago.
Yes, she's become a good friend and actually kind of helped us a little bit in modeling our products out here. So
yeah, she's, my wife and I were out in Arizona in January, and we actually had a great night out with Sue.
Oh, nice.
Had a blast. She's doing, of course, very important work, and she's one of the primary researchers on using a $2 million grant from the state of Colorado to research PTSD and marijuana. So, Brent, sativa or indica?
That's a good question.
Real questions first, man.
I go back and forth. I do say sativa is my preference, but every once in a while I got a little too much energy at night, and it is nice to have a little bit of an indica. But only if that indica is really high in a CBN, if we've cooked a little extra there. So
I see. Okay, cool. We're gonna get into that whole cannabinoid conversation here in a bit. But Brent, you just mentioned. You just launched your new edibles company.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Herbanoids.
it is.
But your business plan differs from a lot of the other edibles companies that are out there in the market. I was just hoping you could tell us what sets your product apart from what other people are doing.
Well, thank you for asking that question. Yes, I'm new to the industry, or to our product out here, but I've been in the industry for almost 6 years, working in different aspects of it here. What sets us apart is we're trying to bring back the interactive experience, like a person would get in the dispensary there. So.
Interactive experience, okay.
Our capsules are actually designed for patients to be able to walk in and actually smell the roses. And for example, our premenstrual support capsules here. This is just a sniffer model for
premenstrual.
Premenstrual support, yes. It's
there's some floral. Is that rose?
It is. There's the rose otto oil. We actually have sourced that from a Bulgarian farm that's been doing this family farming for over 500 years, making these essential oils. It's all organic and kind of. It's actually a lot more expensive than the cannabis we use in our product here. So.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So you're investing in the materials that surround the weed and inside the capsules. Also, are you guys capsule only at this point, or are you guys making pot brownies and drinks?
No, we're like I said, we're trying to be different than the other folks out there. Herbanoids is the synergy between herbs and the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and the flavonoids that all kind of come together to provide a synergistic effect to the body to help with the targeted conditions that we're trying to help people with.
Oh man!
So we don't really look at anybody as competition. Everybody's doing their own different thing out there, and we really welcome all that. So.
What I'm psyched about is we have a couple cannabinoid nerds on the couch right now.
Cannabinoids.
This is good stuff. That's going to be fun in a few minutes here. But I also want to know, because here you guys are, you're in one dispensary now. Congratulations, and I'm sure by next week this will be an outdated number. But I would imagine there are certain advantages or disadvantages that come along with entering the market 2 years after recreational sales started, and here we are 7 years after the dispensary boom really got kick-started. So what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages of you coming along and opening up shop now?
Well, I guess one of the most obvious advantages is we've gotten a chance to kind of see all the changes that have happened along the way. So we've been able to design our label per the latest specs and not had to go through all those changes that a lot of folks in the industry have had to go through.
All of the regulatory changes regarding edible packaging and labeling. Yes, that's a big advantage, just be able to skip that hassle.
That's helped us. The disadvantage we have, though, is we were just a little bit late in applying for our license. So we're dealing with the city's moratorium issue at this point, and hoping that they might lift it on the infused product side, as we want to bring innovation to this industry. And I understand the concerns on both sides, but I think we can help patients find different ways to use cannabis.
And explain a little bit more about the moratorium. Is it a moratorium on recreational infused edibles?
It's actually on all products. The city of Denver has put a moratorium on all grows, infused products, and retail sales. So.
And you guys are able to sneak in on the medical side and start producing there? Is that how?
We actually got our license a little over 2 years ago now. So we've just been in the product development stages for this time, and working on other aspects in the industry as well that will be coming out hopefully this summer sometime. So
2 years in the making is what we're looking at. Probably years, a lot more.
It's a little bit more than 2 years in the making, but yes.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask you about as well. I mean, right now you're only available to medical license holders, but what does the growth strategy look like from here, and how does a company like yours really make it into the recreational space outside of all these roadblocks? How do you expand?
Well, we always like to have backup plans out there, and so about 2 years ago we purchased a property up in South Park, Colorado. And,
we talked about this when we first met. Yeah, please.
The ghost town in South Park, Antero Junction. So we have a backup plan. We have our recreational licenses for cultivation, manufacturing, and retail sales up there. We need to complete the facility up there. It's a dream that we've had here for the last couple of years. It's been in the process, kind of what's delayed Herbanoids getting started here. But just a whole holistic look at the plant there. Bring the medicine back to people and do it in an organic way, just like our friends here at CBDRx.
So, Brent, why haven't you gone to the bank and get a big loan and go develop that property out in South Park, dude?
Oh my goodness, if it was only so easy. Yes, if it was only so easy. I think we all know the banking challenges here, so we hope things change here certainly.
All too familiar. And congratulations on finally entering the market. It was a pleasure meeting you and your wife a couple months ago. I want to bring Tim back into the conversation, especially because you guys both are, very familiar with this plant. some viewers know about THC and CBD, but really, I mean, marijuana is home to a host of different cannabinoids, right? Many of which are probably not discovered yet.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you cannabinoid nerds to pick your favorite. And I don't want to hear THC. Everybody, we know that's a crowd pleaser. So what are the the non-THC cannabinoids out there that you love? Let's pick one. Tim, let's start with you.
Okay. It's hard to pick one. I have many favorites. I'm
like
going to
picking
say
between your favorite
Cannabis.
children.
That's right. CBG is definitely my, well, CBG or maybe CBC, cannabicramine.
It's like CBGBs. I've been
say
there.
it was CBG
Before they
right?
closed. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I would say more towards CBG, cannabigerol. Reason being, you know, it's a predecessor cannabinoid. It's really responsible for a lot of other expressions as the plant grows and metabolizes and grows in its cannabinoid features itself. CBG is kind of responsible for a lot of that action in there.
And do we yet know what it does to humans? I mean, does it have any effects that have been tied to it, either, you know, in early research or legit science?
Do you want to speak on CBG? We had a good conversation on CBG just before we.
Oh, he's picking his own, and it's not CBG. You keep going.
Yeah. So I mean, there is a very limited data, you know, out there specifically on CBG and ailments. There's specific. It's been used specifically in treatments. But to say it's, you know, it's been used specifically in clinical studies, but it has not had it like a true efficacy, you know, clinical trial yet.
So you look forward to learning more about it and
yeah,
really
definitely. I mean, it definitely has a huge therapeutic and medicinal effect, and it has the potential to change a lot of folks' lives for those values. So.
Oh, wow. Brent, your favorite cannabinoid that's not THC.
I have to pick just one. I got to say, I kind of go back and forth.
I'm tough. I'm going to hold you to one.
Gosh, I go back between THCV and CBN. I think THCV is pretty exciting just because it has a little bit different psychoactive effects to it there.
So I know THCA isn't that unactivated THC, and then when it's exposed to heat or another, it becomes THC. Is that correct? So what's THCV?
It's a separate cannabinoid. It's very similar to THC. The psychoactive effects aren't quite as long lasting as the THC, but they tend to be a little bit more profound. It's a difficult one to find. I haven't found a whole lot of strains that are high enough in it to get the full effects, but every once in a while I've come across a strain that, oh man, that must have had some THCV in it. That was just a little different effects than normally you would get from the THC.
So wait a minute, not as long lasting, but more profound? I mean, I think if we're telling people that here's this cannabinoid that's more profound, I think they're going to want that. So explain that. What does it mean? More profound, like in the high, like in the body, mind high? And also, what is maybe a strain that people could go out and pick up that might have a decent percentage of THCV in it?
Gosh, you know, I hope there's some dispensaries listening on the show that might happen to have one that they've tested, because I can't say that I've found a strain recently that's been high enough in it. So,
oh, really? Okay.
So it's one of the rare ones out there, and
it's just, you know, it's really hard to identify. You know, it's as a cannabinoid feature. You know, there's not too many labs that are out there that can identify cannabinoids below, you know, a decimal point in the flowered product. So, you know, it may be present in small doses, but it may just be undetectable to initial lab stuff. So, but there are, you know, like you said, there are strains out there that are high in THC. Sure.
Well, so what about the profound part? I want to know more about the profound part.
I'd say, you know, it's almost similar to. I don't want to say quite into the psychedelic side of things out there, but things just get a little bit different than they would under a standard THC type of a buzz.
I like it.
Side, so.
I like where you're taking this, Brent. All right, I'm going to find myself some THCV. I need to experiment with this stuff. Gentlemen, it is time for the pot quiz.
Pot quiz.
We do this every show. We bring it to a close. Tim, we're starting with you. If you get it wrong, Brent can cherry pick it and grab the point.
Okay.
Vice versa.
Gotcha.
So, you guys ready?
Ready.
All right. Tim, NFL wide receiver Jalen Strong was arrested last week on pot possession charges. Name the team he plays for.
The eyes always glaze over when we ask sports questions.
And we have a couple sports questions on this quiz.
I want to say he was he on the Carolina Panthers?
No, he doesn't play for them now. Yes. We need a good buzzer. So, no. For the steal. Brent?
Nice, Brent.
I'm going to have to go for Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, that was a good random guess off the top of your head. No. Apparently, Jalen Strong plays for the Houston Texans.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But he was arrested in Scottsdale, which I don't know if he lives there in the off-season or what. But, Brent, you're up. Name the Chicago Bears coach who knew that his quarterback and other players actively smoked cannabis during the football season, according to former star quarterback Jim McMahon.
That sounds like a back to the Ditka area.
Ayo, that is a correct answer. Mike Ditka, there you
Nice.
go. Well done, well done. That was an easier question than Jalen Strong, though, because let's be real, this is Broncos country. I don't know who Jalen Strong is.
World champion Broncos country.
Yes, let's not forget that. Tim, name the cannabis startup Accelerator program in Boulder, Colorado that just announced its spring class of entrepreneurs. Oh, this is your backyard, dude.
You're stumping me. I'm too busy in the farming.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. You are in the fields. You're not in with all these tech nerds. So,
who is it? I probably did. As soon as you guys tell me, I'm going to remember.
Cannabis Startup Accelerator Program.
Yeah. I have to refer to Brent on this one.
For the
I'll
steal.
have to say, for the steal, I enjoyed their party last night up in Boulder.
Oh, wow.
They had a neat little get-together. The Canopy up in Boulder. There is the
Canopy. That is the name.
I've actually been to him, too.
Sorry, Tim.
Oh, no. You're gonna get a mean email saying, hey, come on, Tim. All right. There's still opportunity for Tim to get on the board. He can steal this next question if Brent doesn't get it right. So, Brent, name the Southern Hemisphere country that last week legalized the cultivation and distribution of marijuana.
I want to believe it was Chile.
It's a good guess, but no. This just happened last week. And kicking it over to Tim for the steal.
South American country.
Southern Hemisphere country.
Excuse me, Southern Hemisphere. Gosh, I'm stumped.
All right. Yeah, this might be a hard one, but I don't know. This was all over the news. Wow. Australia.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just last week. And granted, they have some steps, they have some hurdles to jump over before they get to the whole selling part. But yeah, it looks like it's moving forward.
Wow.
Crazy. Also, I learned in my research while writing that question that Australia is the 6th largest country in the world via landmass.
Oh. Wow, you wouldn't think that.
So, fun facts here at the Cannabis Show. Hey, I want to say thank you to our guests, Tim Gordon and Brent Beckman. Thanks to you all for watching, listening, and telling your friends about the podcast. I'm Ricardo Baca. I am in the house with producers Eric, Vince, and Dane. Good night, everybody. We will see you next week.
I'm allowed to lose, I choose to win. I'm all in, I'm calling any posse you'll be raising at the end. I say it again, ain't afraid to get in. I'll be going for the jackpot with aces in my hand, I'm raw.